Hey, what's up, guys? Hello, Footballtalk here. We are back with the final version of positional draft rankings for the defensive side of the ball, the safety class. We've already broken down every other position outside of quarterback, which I will put out a video for next week. So check out all the other videos that are out. The positions that you can't find there, you can look up on my homepage, where I go into even more depth and really break them down. So watching this group of safeties, I thought was very interesting. There's a pretty clear top three, but all of those guys have kind of obvious question marks. And after that, there's a lot of disagreement. And I think I really differentiate myself more so than at any other position. Maybe with these safeties, where I value different skill sets more than other guys may. I think there's a bunch of prospects, even in the later rounds, that I had to be very thorough with and really watch a bunch of guys. And in the end, this is what it came down to. So without further ado, my number one safety in this class is Xavier Mckinney from Alabama. Former top 50 national recruit, was a reserve and special teamer in all 13 games as a true freshman for the Crimson Tide, but then pretty grabbed one of the starting safety spots and didn't let go of it anymore. Last season was the first team All-SEC selection with 95 tackles, 3 sacks, 5 passes broken up, 3 interceptions, and 4 forced fumbles. He also had a pick 6 and blocked a punt in that crazy LSU game. McKinney is a very smart and instinctive football player at 6'5", to about 200 pounds, who really understands spacing and where the ball could go. He offered a lot of versatility, as you can see here. Over 200 snaps at deep safety, in the box and in the slot. In the box, he plays almost like a linebacker, and from deep he fills the alley really aggressively while taking good angles. And he locks a lot of people backwards when he arrives there. At Alabama, McKinney was asked to play a multitude of coverages and had a lot of responsibilities, either in deep middle, halves, as a robber, guarding slot receivers and tight ends, but also covering the shallow areas as a sub-package linebacker already. When the ball is caught, McKinney is an outstanding open field tackler with a bunch of third down stops and really negates those yards have to catch. Even when he's lined up like 15 yards deep and somebody catches a ball at the flats, he just races up there and makes a pretty safe tackle there. McKinney was also highly effective as a blitzer these last 2 years, either disrupting the run with 11.5 tackles for loss or getting to the quarterback with 21 pressures on 71 pass rush attempts, which is a really high rate. He also had a strip sacks on LSU quarterback Joe Burrow in that matchup and really was all over the field in that game, either making safe tackles in space, getting involved on pass plays, that strip sacks, really getting after Burrow. So he had a monster game in a matchup where not a lot of defense was actually played. There was a lot of high scoring. I think the final score was close to 90 points, like 46-42, something like that. But he really stood out as one of the defensive players. The negatives with McKinney, I think there are some limitations with him athletically. Doesn't really have that free safety range and deep coverage as some of the other guys may do. And his athleticism is not really elite to trust him in the slot against some of the better receivers at the next level full time. I also think he needs to come in a little lower as a tackler. There's some yards after contact because he's just too high and guys can kind of run through him a little bit. McKinney, however, is a highly versatile player with great football IQ and feel for the game. I think he can play either safety spot, be a dime linebacker for you, blitz from different spots. So he offers a lot of versatility. And while he's not a perfect athlete at this point, I would say he's a very safe prospect. I think you kind of know what you get and you can deploy him in very different ways. Next up, I have Grant Delpit from LSU, former 4-star recruit who immediately contributed for the Tigers. Double-digit starts as a true freshman, but he really broke out in 2018. 74 tackles, 9 of them for loss, 5 sacks, a fumble, forced and recovered each, 9 PBUs and 5 passes picked off, which earned him unanimous first-team All-American honors. And while he did take a little step backwards last season, he was still a first-team All-SEC selection for the eventual national champs. Delpit is everything you want to see in terms of measurables, 6'2", good 210 pounds, with a 74.5-inch wingspan. Played a lot of quarters, single high, shallow zones, and even manned up on number 2 and 3 receivers and trip sets. A lot of versatility there. Also has that body to be a tight end eraser, possibly if you put him in those matchups. Delpit is super fluid in his pedal and rotations despite his height, and he has no problems coming forward after retreating initially, which is really special for a safety at his height, kind of the lanky build. However, his biggest value in coverage to me comes as a true center fielder with the range and ball skills to really shine in that area. He can also drop his shoulder on guys catching the ball in front of him, however, which you saw in the Florida game when one of the tight ends looked wide open for a touchdown over the middle, but Delpit came from behind, got a big hit on him, and somehow knocked the ball out on what looked like a surefire touchdown. Delpit was also very effective as a blitzer, especially off the edge. Recorded 13 pressures and 39 pass rush attempts, so on every third of those in 2018, and his 7 sacks on 76 pass rush attempts overall these last 2 years is also a pretty good rate. With that being said, the biggest issue, obviously, with Delpit, all those missed tackles. Missed 16 tackles in 2018 and 20 last season, which results in a rate of almost 25% over that stretch. I think he really needs to start staying on his feet a little more and wrapping up instead of just diving low at somebody's legs. He also needs to do a better job using those long arms of his to disengage on blocks, and he's not perfect at working through his keys yet either in coverage. So while those tackling issues are definitely a problem, I think it's more about shooting down aggressively and missing tackles that way on kind of calculated risks than him being deep safety, where he sees the ball in front of him, can choose the right angles and get himself into position. Not to take anything out of this, he still has his issues, but there is a lot of technique he can work on. Definitely with his lanky build, he prefers to kind of dive at somebody's legs, but if you coach him up technically, he should get a lot better in that area. I think he offers a lot of versatility, but to me he's best as a true single high free safety at the next level. At number 3, I have Antoine Winfield from Minnesota, son of former first-round pick and Pro Bowler Antoine Winfield Sr. of the Vikings. Had an incredible 2019 campaign, did Antoine Jr., unanimous first-team All-American, and somewhat controversially came up short of winning the Jim Thorpe Trophy for the best defensive back in the country. Lost to Grant Delpit, who didn't have his best season, as we just discussed, in 2019. Still, Winfield with 83 tackles, 3 sacks, 2 fumbles forced, and 7 interceptions had a really good season. Unfortunately, after a strong start as a freshman, missed all but 4 games in each of the next 2 seasons, and was finally happy to shine last season. Winfield is kind of a stocky build at 5'9", 205 pounds, has experience with deep middle coverage, but also almost spent 300 snaps in the box last season. No matter where he lines up, he seems to always be around the ball. Plays this free safety position kind of safely, as you would say. But if he doesn't have to cover the deep middle, he triggers in the blink of an eye versus the run and really adjusts his angles on the fly really well. Winfield has free safety instincts and feel for the game, which all lead him to the ball and led to those 7 interceptions last season. He also won a lot more on jump balls than a guy his size should against some tight ends or whatever down the field. I also really liked what I saw from him at the Combine, running a 4.45, putting up top 10 numbers in both leaping events, the vert and the broad. But more importantly, what he did on the field, really looking smooth, moving all over the turf there in Indianapolis and showing off his great ball skills. In addition to his play in coverage and run support, Winfield also was blitzed from deep quite a few times and looked like a maniac shooting down there. Had 3 sacks in 2019 and chopped on a lot of running backs from behind when it looked like they had a kind of nice crease there. Before you talk about anything else with Winfield, you have to bring up the long injury history. Missed 18 games over the 2017 and 18 campaigns with surgeries and on his foot and hamstrings. And some NFL scouts also will not look at him quite as a free safety because it doesn't quite have that range. Some of the other guys do. You question if he can make plays outside the numbers. And there are also some size concerns at 5'9", with arms that just reach around 30 inches. With that being said, I think Winfield is a combo safety with the instincts and IQ to be a playmaker at the next level. His movement skills may not be elite, but combined with the feel he has for the game, they are plenty good, and he's really smooth and quite fluid with that. So his position in the draft will be largely determined by that injury history, because from tape I don't see a lot of questions. It's just at this time right now, whether you value him, how do you take those injuries into account? And I could see him be in the late first round, but I could also see him drop a little if teams aren't sure what kind of a player they will get if there's any degenerate issues. Moving out of my top three into kind of the next tier of guys. At number 4, of Jeremy Chinn from Southern Illinois. Didn't receive any Division I offers, but was the Mountain Valley Conference Newcomer of the Year as a freshman, despite only playing in like 9 games because he banged up his shoulder. But since then, he's been a fixture in the starting lineup, earning second team All-Conference in 2017 and first team All-Conference these last 2 years. Through his 4 years with the Salukis, he's recorded 13 interceptions, 31 pass breakups, 6 forced fumbles, and 243 overall tackles. Chinn is well built at 6'3", 220 pounds with ridiculous athleticism and fluidity for a guy that size. 41-inch vertical at the combine, which was second best among all defensive backs. 11'6" broad jump, which was second best among all performers there. And that 4.45 in the 40 is nothing to scoff at either. In addition to that, he didn't show any problems moving on the field and was really impressive at the Senior Bowl with the way he moved in the open space and kind of flipped his hips and all that kind of stuff. Southern Illinois ran a bunch of 2-high looks, and Chinn really stood out with his quick bursts to close distances in a hurry and take away angles in the run game. Also was used in the robber role, where I really liked those bursts to take away easy throws over the middle. Chinn also has some experience in man coverage versus slots, and was also already used as a sub-package linebacker to some degree in certain matchups, really being deployed in various coverages. With that being said, Chinn really faced limited quality competition last season. His only 2 FBS teams he played against were UMass, which finished 1-11, and Arkansas State, which was a mid-level Sunbelt Conference team. He's also kind of a see-ball, get-ball type of player at this point, not really anticipating or feeling things develop yet. I really think he has a lot of room to grow in terms of his football IQ and anticipation, but the athletic skill set and the production have already been there, of course. His ability to close distances quickly and the potential to guard bigger bodies in the pass game is very intriguing to me, and I really like him a lot. At number 5, I have Kyle Duggar from Lenoir Rhyne. Didn't receive any Division I offers either as a unranked recruit. Was kind of a late bloomer. When he arrived at Lenoir Rhyne, he was only 5'6", but he grew to 6'1" his senior year. Over his 4-year career, he's recorded 237 tackles, 10 interceptions, 36 pass breakups, 6 fumbles forced and recovers each. And he won the Cliff Harris Award in 2019 for the best small school player in Division I and 3. Also had 6 punt return touchdowns in his career, and he's looking now to be the first Lenoir Rhyne player to be drafted since 2000. I really didn't know much about Duggar before the Senior Bowl, but there he really looked comfortable and fit right in. He continued to make noise at the combine as well, running a 4.49 at almost 220 pounds, put up at the B-best 42-inch vert and an 11.2 broad jump. At his size, he was more of the frame of a will linebacker, and he really fills out the jersey beautifully. Has a ton of explosiveness, and he's really out there to hunt. You see him work upfield in a controlled manner for the most part in the run game, but he can also shoot through the blocker's outside shoulder on like jet sweeps, all that kind of plays when he has to race down there. Duggar's a very physical player, but he also has very easy speed, didn't have any issues staying with those D2 athletes. He looks really comfortably flipping his hips as well, whether this skinny post run behind him where he can turn his head and still find the ball, or at least disrupt the play. And when the cut is made in front of him, then driving on those balls as well. You saw him a lot of times. He looked like he had no problems, like sitting on routes by tight ends, for example, and then staying right on top of them as they made their break either way. A play that sticks out to me was that double pass versus Mars Hill. One of the outside receivers caught a screen pass and then tried to target one of his teammates on a rail route, but Duggar came over, knocked that guy out of bounds to force the pass incomplete. With that being said, you saw that Duggar was easily the best athlete out on the field at all times, and it really showed the way he could sit on routes and just let things develop, and instead of being anticipatory and really seeing plays coming before they actually appear. You see him overrun some plays as well and leave his feet as a tackler, which still have to be cleaned up. While it's definitely tough to project a player like Duggar to the NFL because he was so far ahead athletically of the competition, his testing and senior bowl performance gives you kind of a glimpse of where he could develop into. I think his skill set is definitely made for the NFL to be kind of a strong safety near the line of scrimmage, has some deep coverage ability, but especially in passing downs, I like him down in the box as that nickel or dime linebacker. In addition to that, he also had 54.4 return yards average in 2018, including interceptions, so he definitely brings you value in that aspect as well, despite his size. At number 6, I have Ashtyn Davis from California. Another one of those unranked players out of high school who deserved the scholarship for his track and field performance at Cal and then walked on for the football team. In his first season with the team, he was the special team MVP and started the last 3 games at corner. Then in the following season, he repeated those special teams honors and earned 6 starts at safety. Since then, he's been a fixture in the starting lineup these last 2 years, earning honorable mention All Pac-12 and second team All Conference respectively. And he combined for 108 tackles, 6 interceptions, and 9 passes broken up over that stretch. At 6'1", 200 pounds, Davis plays at full speed all the time, and that's pretty fast for a former track star. I really like how he shuffles and squeezes the run down from the backside, and when he gets to piles, he tries to punch at the ball late. Davis has the range as a deep middle safety, was deployed in a lot of too high looks, but they also rotated the safeties a lot, and Davis got a chance to play single high where it really stood out the range he had sideline to sideline. And also in man coverage, what stands out is that lightning quick ability to come out of his breaks as he sees the receiver make a cut and break on those passes. With his speed, he can also basically blitz from any spot on the field. One play I can remember is when he came from a 15 yards head start and he just ran over Washington running back Salvon Ahmed, who I like quite a bit as well, but got his money worth in protection. The negatives with Davis here, sometimes he shoots downhill a little too aggressively and can kind of get sucked in. Another play, since I just talked about Ahmed in the Washington game, where Davis shot down and Ahmed used that aggressiveness against him for a long touchdown on 4th and 1. You also see him whiff on some tackles where he comes in too hot and doesn't really wrap up properly. Davis's speed and willingness to be physical make him a very intriguing prospect to me. He definitely has to be more consistent with his angles and learn how to throttle down a little bit in space. But his range and change of direction ability makes him a really nice free safety prospect. Can really see that working out if you deploy him as a single high role. Next up at number 7, I have K1 Wallace from Clemson. Former first team All-Virginia selection on offense and defense. Still somehow became only a 3-star prospect and got snatched up by Clemson. Barely saw the field as a freshman, earned 6 starts the following season before climbing up to the top of the depth chart and being an impact player these last 2 years. Over the stretch, he combined for 133 tackles, 3 interceptions, a couple of sacks and forced fumbles each, and 17 passes broken up, which earned him second and third team All-ACC respectively. Wallace is a 5'11", 205-pound bundle of energy, highly competitive and really works his way through traffic very well. He only missed 18 of his 171 career tackling attempts and had a pretty good combine as well, highlighted by the top mark in the free cone for any defensive back, so his change of direction is pretty darn good. I see a lot of sudden bursts to make plays on the ball by Wallace, whether it's in zone or man coverage, was heavily deployed in the slot, where he manned up on bigger bodies as well. What I really like about him is the way he can work around bigger bodies and tight ends in the pass game, especially on those hook routes where the body of the tight end is between him and the ball, but he somehow gets around it and knocks the ball down. Overall, we recorded a passer rating of 61.9 when targeted last season. Was also heavily utilized as a blitzer in that versatile defensive scheme under Brett Venables. The negatives here, Wallace is definitely quicker than fast, lacks that top end speed to run with those true burners down the field. And while he definitely plays big, he's not as big as he thinks, which kind of shows when he's taken on blocks or takes the worst of big collisions with more massive ball carriers. Still, I really like the versatility, play almost anywhere on the field. To me, his best fit definitely still is in the slot, which he already played mostly at Clemson. I love his feisty attitude and trust in himself. Wallace should be a day one starter at nickel and a core special teamer who brings a lot of energy as well to your defense. At number 8, I have Julian Blackmon from Utah. Despite breaking his hand as a high school senior, he still was a 3-star recruit and decided to stay home in Utah and play for the hometown Utes. After barely seeing the field as a freshman, he started all 27 games at corner over the next 2 years, earning second-team All-Pac-12 in each of them. And last season, he made the transition to safety, where he was a second-team All-American thanks to 60 tackles, 1.5 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, and 4 interceptions, including a pick 6. The 6', 190-pound Blackmon spent 485 of his 632 snaps as a deep safety last season. He takes those coverage responsibilities very seriously, but when he sees a green light and he knows that he can go, he really goes. Chooses a lot of appropriate angles towards the sideline. It was a very reliable open field tackler. Only missed 11 of his tackles with his last 2 years combined, where he really works across the body of the ball carrier and clamps at his legs. One play that sticks out here as well was the tackle for loss he had versus Oregon to start the Pac-12 championship game, where he rotated down with a motion across the field and just blasted through the ball carrier for a tackle for loss. Blackmon also adjusts to the ball very well in single high duty, rarely allowed anybody to get behind him as a deep male player, and also has a lot of experience in man coverage, of course, because he played so much corner, where I really like the way he placed eyes at the receiver, locks in there. Once he sees him look for the football himself, his eyes go back to the ball, trying to find it and then make a play on it. On the flip side, Blackmon lacks the premier top-end speed or athleticism, which was also a big reason he moved to safety in the first place. His last year at corner in 2018, he allowed almost 800 yards in coverage, and he's kind of undersized and he struggles to fight off some blocks downfield, especially when a big tight end can get in his face. Blackmon still is one of my guys in this draft. Had a non-contact injury in the conference championship game, so we don't really have any testing on him and can compare it to some other guys in this class. I don't think he would have wowed anybody with it either, but I really value his instincts and secure tackling skills to be that deep middle safety. And I think if you can put some good guys around him in coverage, he can be a very reliable player for the next decade or so. At number 9, I have J.R. Reed from Georgia. Despite being the son of former NFL receiver Jake Reed, he was only a 3-star recruit and did not receive any offers from the big programs. However, after a year at Tulsa, he made the move to Athens and immediately took over one of the safety spots. He started every game these last 3 years, and in 2019 he was a first-team All-American with 7 pass breakups and ones across the board for interceptions, fumble recovery, and forced, and also scored a touchdown for one of the stingier defenses in college football. What stands out right away about Reed is that long build at 6'1", right around 200 pounds with 32.5-inch arms. Was a crucial 3-year starter for that Georgia program with a lot of versatility and was highly important asset for the defense, playing a lot of different roles. The last season he kind of settled in as the deep safety with about 60% of the snaps there. In deep coverage, Reed shows good patience and anticipation. Also kind of underrated athletically. 4.54 at the combine should erase some of those speed concerns. And I also think he has some pretty good closing burst, which he showed off against Notre Dame last season when the Irish ran one of the receivers on a crossing route out of the bunch. And Reed followed him the entire way. When the ball came out, as the quarterback scrambled that way, he just shot down there and made a tiptoe interception at the sideline. Very impressive play. With his length, he can also either go through or stack up blockers with those long arms and be able to hold his ground in the run game. With that being said, Reed definitely has the lanky build and this upright in his pedal, which limits the ability to change directions for him quickly. Over his career with the Bulldogs, he missed 47 career tackles, kind of drops his head too much as a tackler at times, and he will also turn 24 before the season even starts, so he might be a little closer to his potential than some of the other guys on this list. Overall, I think Reed is a really solid but not overly exciting safety prospect. He's far from those athletic freaks that we've talked about at the top maybe, but I really like his balanced style of play. And if he learns to throttle down his pace a little more, he can be a very dependable player for whoever drafts him. And wrapping up my top 10 is Terrell Burgess from Utah, the other Utah safety, former 3-star recruit who split time between receiver and defensive back as a freshman before making the transition full-time. It took him until his senior year to finally become a starter, but he was very impressive in the one season. 81 tackles, 7.5 of them for loss, 5 passes broken up, and 2 fumbles recovered, which earned him an honorable mention All Pac-12 selection. Burgess is 5'11", 202 pounds, spent about 70% of the snaps between in the slot and the box. He's really not afraid to stick his face in the fan, makes a lot of effective tackles in open space, but can also kind of shoot through gaps and doesn't mind mixing it up with bigger bodies either. He only missed 8 tackles of about 70 attempts last season, but while constantly putting himself in good position. Also has excellent athleticism for the safety or nickel position at 4.46 in the 40. Man coverage, you see a lot of patient feet, fluid hips, and good change of direction skills. Last season, he only allowed 190 yards on 26 of 40 targets his way for an outstanding yards per target mark under 5 yards. His longest catch that he allowed was also only 34 yards, and PFF actually had him as the second highest graded safety in coverage. However, Burgess played some corner at the Senior Bowl, and you really saw some struggles there, allowed receivers to stack him without much resistance, and at an inch short of 6 feet and only 29.5-inch arms, he doesn't have the length to crowd the catch point consistently. Did not have a ton of deep coverage reps either, with those mostly going to Julian Blackmon, who's not nearly the athlete Burgess is. I think Burgess' best fit and easiest transition should be as a slot corner. He'll be able to utilize his man coverage and blitzing abilities. I definitely like that he's unafraid in traffic and his athletic, impressive profile, so I think he should be a day one nickel as well. If you just protect him by not putting him into some of those mismatch situations against bigger bodies who can take advantage of them. Alright, 3 other guys I want to mention here. First one being Geno Stone from Iowa. I really like how he triggers upfield versus run in the heartbeat and limits plays to minimal yardage. Played a bunch of cover 2, but also was utilized as a robber in some single high. Really attacks the ball at its highest point and has a great understanding of spacing and zone. But he also had a pretty rough combine, which would suggest that he would move in the box. But there he hasn't been nearly as successful, and he only had very limited coverage snaps in man. He also leaps a little too much as a tackler. 30 missed tackles last season is not a good number. The next guy is Aloy Gilman from Notre Dame. Really like his feisty playing style and the way he gets involved in plays late. Make sure that the pal moves backwards, and even if he can't quite get there, you see him entering the screen and the broadcast view routinely. Was deployed in a multitude of coverages with the Irish, with pretty good change of direction and no fear to attack the ball. His 4.6 in the 40 at the combine wasn't necessarily that good, but he had very good free cone and shuttle drill numbers. However, Gilman was kind of exposed versus wide receivers last season. 11 of the 14 targets his way were completed, and while he liked the physicality, he got caught grabbing a lot at the Senior Bowl when he was put one-on-one against receivers as well. He's just not the kind of loose, fluid athletes to excel in deep coverage, but I really like him more in the box. He had pretty good numbers there versus tight ends and backs in one-on-one coverage. And finally, there's Jordan Fuller from Ohio State. Has great size for a free safety at 6'2", about 205 pounds. Was utilized mostly in deep coverage last season after moving around quite a bit before that, about 88% in deep coverage in 2019. Fuller shows excellent instincts and range, tracks the ball exceptionally well as well, and he really punishes receivers who are trying to make the catches around him. Knocked the ball out of Donovan Peoples-Jones from Michigan last year. Shoved a little before the halftime after what looked like a surefire touchdown as well, but he just rocked him and got the ball out of there. Kind of bailed Jeffrey Okudah out actually on that one. Fuller also takes great angles and is very dependable tackles. Only 6 missed tackles last season. However, playing behind a tree of corners like Okudah, Damon Arnett, and Shaun Wade makes things a lot easier for the safety. He kind of had a shocking 4.67 at the combine. When I went back to the tape, I saw kind of the conservative style of play, being deeper than the deepest by quite a bit and prematurely opening his hips, which could be because of that speed or lack thereof. All right, recapping my top 10 here. At number 1, Xavier Mckinney from Alabama. Very good all-around safety. Might not be the greatest athlete, but definitely a very dependable starter. Delpit, who has his tackling issues, but I really like his deep middle safety. And number 3, Antoine Winfield, who has that lengthy injury history, but definitely has a lot of traits that I really like. Next group of guys, kind of with Chinn and Kyle Duggar. Very athletic, explosive guys from smaller schools, and I'm going to put Ashtyn Davis in there as well, who's still developing at the safety position, former track star. Then you have K1 Wallace, who could also be with the corners here because he's kind of nickel only, maybe some sub-package linebacker, but I don't want him to play that much deep or as a full-time corner. Definitely like it inside though. Julian Blackmon, maybe not as athletic, but definitely a dependable deep safety. J.R. Reed, kind of the same thing here. And then Terrell Burgess, only 1 year as a starter. Also pretty much a nickel at this point, who lacks a little bit of height, but very athletic profile, and I like quite a bit as well. So that's my list. I hope you enjoyed it, the breakdown. If so, I would really appreciate it if you gave this video a like, left a subscribe here. Let me know what you think in the comments, and also check out my social media channels in the description. I will be back next week with the breakdown of the top quarterbacks. You can also check out my other videos here in the meantime. So until then, see you later. Peace!